Good evening and welcome to the Gifford Fire Informational Community Meeting for Sunday, August 17th. My name is Nathan Judy, Information Officer for California Interagency Incident Command Team 5. I will be your facilitator for this night's evening. I have one special announcement.
Hola, mi nombre es Shahera. Estaré aquí para ayudar a traducir o responder cualquier pregunta en español si es necesario. Hi, my name is Shahera. I will be here to help translate or answer any questions in Spanish if it's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana. Today you're going to hear from members of our Unified Command Team as well as our partners. After the formal presentation of the meeting, we will take questions that were submitted in email earlier today and the ones submitted online in chat. That will be after our formal presentation. We're going to kick it off with our Unified Command Operations Section Chief, Tony Achapente.
Thank you, Nathan. Good morning, my name is Tony, or I should say good evening. My name is Tony Achapente, Planning Ops Trainee with Team 5, and I'll be providing you a brief overview of the operations that have occurred over the last few days since our prior community meeting. And if you're new to this, I'll just touch on a brief overview of what the last couple of weeks have looked like. So this fire started on the 166 corridor and aggressively moved both north and south of Highway 166 in a fashion that immediately put the resources that were on scene of that incident in a position to have to prioritize and triage things like life safety and structure protection. As the resources started pulling in, we were able to start gaining ground on the south side of the fire as it progressed into the San Rafael Wilderness. And then over the last week and a half, we were able to get around successfully the north side of the fire with some challenges as the fire entered an old fuel bed in the Garcia Wilderness. Looking down here on the south side of the fire between Pine Canyon and Coyama Valley, we've had success with crews working in and around the area, securing the fire's edge, and I'm pleased to say that we've not seen any fire movement down there the last handful of days. We do still have resources working in and around that area, ensuring that there's nothing that's going to threaten the line or put us in a position to have to send more resources out there because fire escaped the control lines. Working up the north side of the fire along the Madre fire scar from last month, things are looking really good, and as we transition up over the California Valley, crews have continued securing that line, working up towards Avenales Ranch Road. As we talked about the other day, we had a hugely successful strategic firing operation in which firefighters developed and implemented a multi-day firing plan. And what that did was it gave us the opportunity to bring the fire to our control lines on our terms and not have to be reactionary, but rather be proactive. Again, that was very successful, and since that firing operation has completed, we've not seen any significant growth on the fire, and we continue to reinforce those control lines and mop up any heat that could threaten the line or could put us in a position to have to go chase after spot fires or things that would get out of our containment lines. Traveling down through the Wasna Valley and down back to the Highway 166 corridor, everything is looking really good, and again, crews continue to reinforce those lines. One additional thing that I would point out that you can anticipate seeing in the area for the coming weeks is our fire suppression repair effort. And one of the things that we try to do when we're attacking these fires, we have a primary plan, and that's where the boots on the ground firefighters are going after this. They're right on the fire's edge. We're aggressively attacking it with aircraft, helicopters, retardant. But we also have to think ahead, and we have to develop contingency plans. And because of that, there's quite a bit of dozer line in and around the area. We have almost 400 miles of dozer line that were constructed on this fire. And so, as stated, in the coming weeks, we'll continue that fire suppression repair effort to repair that ground and return it to the state that it once was in. I just want to say I think it's a testament to the hard work of the boots on the ground out on the fire line. I think it represents a collaborative effort between both the U.S. Forest Service and CAL FIRE, and I think it's important to remark on the Master Mutual Aid System. We've had folks from all over the state of California and throughout the entire United States, from not just state and federal agencies, but local fire departments alike. Thank you, and next I'd like to bring up our resource advisor, Garrett Knowles.
Thanks, Tony. I'm Garrett Knowles, lead read here on the incident. I've been asked to speak to you all tonight about what suppression repair is, and like Tony just mentioned, you know, there's a variety of features on the landscape when you're fighting fire: dozer lines, hand lines, retardant. Those are the things firefighters use to contain the fire and extinguish it. But now we have the mission of repairing a lot of those features. And what I mean by that, in this picture, this is a dozer line that comes down into a drainage, into a creek. As you can tell by the firefighter there, it's steep. And if that's left untreated with the next rain event, a lot of sediment could come down that slope. It could really cause some erosion and sediment to go into a stream. And that can create a variety of issues for road access, wildlife, water quality. So there are some very set standards that we follow to repair that line so that we can prevent erosion and restore the health of the fire area. Next photo, please. So in this case, this is kind of a good example of another dozer line going through a stream. It's a little bit different because you have more rock. You can see the black, you can see some retardant. And so that's another thing that we also look for. Like I mentioned, retardants used in a lot of locations. It's tracked, we know where it's at. But if it goes into a drainage, we just need to determine if there are sensitive species in that drainage that we would then need to work with Fish and Wildlife Service on to let them know that retardant is in there and whether or not further action is needed. Next photo, please. And so this is a standard metric, a diagram that we put in our suppression repair plan. And this is basically the diagram shows you how to build a water bar. This practice, it's been used for decades in forestry. And so this is kind of what we are using to guide what we're doing out there. And I would just like to say, you know, this is a very brief part of what we're doing. There's a lot more to suppression repair, including cleaning up trash. You know, there's a lot of just humans out there during the fight, so cleaning up staging areas, spike camps, trying to leave the area in a state where it's similar to what it was before the fire was there. So that's for the future enjoyment of the public, and we're trying to do this for everybody's safety in the long run. So that's all I have to share with you right now. Up next, I'd like to introduce San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Department Commander Ian Dowdy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ian Dowdy. I'm a commander with the Sheriff's Office. I'll speak tonight about some of the evacuation orders that we've had in the current road closures. For the evacuation orders, we were able to see a significant reduction in orders and warnings yesterday, primarily along the northern side near Santa Margarita and Cal Valley. We anticipate, as long as things continue to progress in the same fashion, likely in the coming days we'll be able to continue with that and see additional reductions in both orders and warnings throughout the entire exterior of the area. The next part, we do still have road closures at Avanalis Ranch Road and Pozo Road to the south end, as well as High Mountain Lookout and Pozo Road, which does lead over to the Garcia Ridge and Garcia Mountain area. We would like to remind everyone that the forest is subject to a U.S. Forest Service closure order. We have contacted subjects in evacuation order areas on High Mountain that have no legitimate business observing or taking photos. So recognize that that area is still actively being worked. There's heavy machinery, heavy equipment, fire crews are still operating. If subjects are contacted in that area, they may be subject to enforcement action. So that being said, we are happy that the reductions in the orders and warnings are continuing, and we hope that it continues that way. Please feel free to ask any questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being on this community meeting. My name is John Owens. I'm the CAL FIRE Agency Administrator, along with San Luis Obispo Unit Chief and San Luis Obispo County Fire Chief. And I just want to reiterate what all the previous speakers have said, is that we are continuing to work in unified command between CAL FIRE, United States Forest Service, San Luis Obispo County Sheriffs, and Incident Command Team 5. And we'll continue to work together in a unified fashion during suppression repair, just like we have during the firefight. So please be sure to ask any questions that you would like to have. And we're also continuing to work closely with San Luis Obispo Office of Emergency Services to help coordinate any issues with this incident with them. And now I'd like to turn it over to Jeannie Dawson, who is the Los Padres National Forest Deputy Forest Supervisor.
Thank you, John. As John said, I'm the local unit line officer, the Deputy Forest Supervisor, Jeannie Dawson. And I want to thank everyone for attending tonight. I know probably many of you have been attending all of our meetings, and I appreciate your attendance and participation and interest in what we're doing here, because that's something that we in Unified Command really pride ourselves on, is being able to communicate the information to the public so that they can understand the situation and understand how it's impacting their use of the forest and the public lands that we all enjoy. There's a few things that I wanted to go over, and I understand there's quite a few questions out there as well, so looking forward to answering those too. So this fire started on August 1st, so it's been going for a little over 2 weeks now. When that fire began, and when we entered Unified Command with CAL FIRE and the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's and the then San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, we had a plan, we had an idea of where this fire would go and what it would do, but we also needed to make sure we were adaptable and able to do as much as we could to safeguard the safety of our firefighters and the public while we were conducting fire suppression operations. One of the tools that we have available in the Forest Service is a forest fire area closure. And so that was implemented to help safeguard and protect the operations that were happening out there, and understanding that a lot of heavy equipment, a lot of dynamic conditions were out there on the fire line and in the surrounding area. We needed to be sure that we could get in there, take the actions in a timely manner, an efficient manner, and feel confident that no one was in the area that would be unintentionally put in harm's way because we weren't aware of where they were at. So, fast forward, we've come to August 17th, and we've made great strides together in Unified Command, communicating multiple times on a daily basis about what the fire was doing, and how the access for the public needed to be altered to achieve that. And I'm happy to say that, as Commander Dottie was telling us, that there have been a lot of evacuation orders and warnings that have lifted or eased. But that means that also we still have a lot of work to do on the Los Padres National Forest. As was stated earlier, there's a lot of suppression repair to be conducted, and that requires oftentimes heavy equipment. That means that that equipment is there to do a job. They're focused on that, and they're not they're not always going to be aware if someone is coming in who rightfully so is interested in learning about what we're doing, but intentionally puts themselves in harm's way and could compromise the safety of themselves and also firefighters. On this operation, as in many fire operations, firefighter and public safety is number one. So I'm asking everybody to understand and educate yourselves on the forest fire closure area, and understand that also as we are moving into fire suppression repair and looking at getting further containment on the fire, that we'll be looking at easing the area closure and shrinking that area down with superseding orders. That's something that we're currently in talks with our teams and incident commanders to determine where we can go ahead and open up and ease the access, because I know we have communities that want to get out there and recreate on the public lands. We have people who utilize the public lands for their livelihoods, and we also have a hunting season that's ongoing right now, and I know a lot of people want to get out there. We want you to, and we also want you to be safe. And so with that, I'm asking for your patience and understanding, and also taking time to educate yourself on where things are closed and where things are open, so that you can stay as safe as possible and help keep our firefighters safe too. Some of the other resources and values at risk that we're attending to are the critical infrastructure and the natural and resource cultural values. So while we're going through suppression repair, we're looking at those concerns and seeing how our suppression efforts have impacted those, and we are working through the process to try to shore those things up and protect them for what we know is going to be could be an unpredictable winter and rainy season. We also have teams that come in to determine, what are the immediate effects that need to be stabilized and addressed, because we know that we are upstream of many infrastructure values and communities. And so we are working through that process now, getting those teams mobilized to come and address the imminent needs to make sure that things are stabilized before the rainy season. I know we're not seeing a lot of smoke out there, but I just want to reiterate, that this is still very active. There's still a lot of potential. We're going into a warming and heating and drying trend, and I ultimately want everyone to come off the fire line safely, and also for the public to be safe as well, and also be able to enjoy their public lands. So that's what we're working on. And with that, I will turn it over to our Unified Incident Commanders for Incident Team 5, Dustin Mueller and Kevin Bohall.
Hi, good evening. So Kevin and I are going to stand up here and talk about incident command a little bit, and how the unified message and objectives all come together. This really started with relationships from previous fires that we've both fought across California. So we just want to enhance that a little bit more and highlight the collaboration between the two agencies of the United States Forest Service and CAL FIRE. But before I start into that, I want to announce some new numbers for tonight regarding containment and acreage. So currently we're sitting at 131,589 acres burned, and we're upping it to 91% contained, and we're down a couple thousand firefighters, and right now we're currently at 3,047 personnel assigned to the incident. So myself, Dustin Mueller, I'm the incident commander for California Interagency Incident Management Team 5. We were called on August 2nd to mobilize to this incident. Shortly after that, it was a unified command with CAL FIRE with the threat of state threats. So CAL FIRE also mobilized Kevin and his team as well. And he'll speak about that in a moment. So what you get from our California Interagency Incident Management Team is, when we showed up, we had 150 personnel assigned. So that ranges from incident commanders, our deputy staff, operations, which kind of runs the firefighting and air operations. We have logistics and support staff to set up all these camps and support the firefighters on the ground. Then we have PIO staff, which is public information to keep you guys all updated. We have plan staff that make the plan and strategy that includes fire behavior analysis and weather. So with all that, there's a lot of other parts in that, but there's 150 people dedicated from throughout the state of California, and our teams are made up of federal, state, and local government firefighters. And those people are dedicated 365 days a year to serve the purpose of California and the nation. So like I said, one unified message is what we strive for, one objective, one incident action plan. We developed that together. So I'm going to turn it over to Kevin now on as talk on the CAL FIRE and how we collaborated a lot. Kevin Bohall.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Dustin. So one of the things I wanted to kind of accentuate and go a little bit further on was unified command, which obviously is the topic of the evening. But one of the things that we do is we have all these incidents in California in the current fire environment. We understand now that these are probably, in most cases on a major fire, going to be multi-jurisdictional. So there's going to be multiple jurisdictions that have values at risk that they have to protect, in order to manage these incidents. So what happens is we get together, we see what stake we have in the game, and we come up with a plan in order to manage the incident, looking at those values at risk. The big key there is not only are we looking out for all those things that we've identified that we need to protect, but we're also looking at a force multiplier. So now, instead of having one incident management team, 2 incident management teams, or multiple, you have more people to help manage that incident and make sure we have a good, successful outcome of that incident. Another example we had, obviously, was the Eaton fire. That was a time we did that previously, that I personally have worked with the same team, which is how we came with some of the relationships that we came to that we've utilized over the past few weeks. So one thing that I don't think will end, I think we'll continue to do this into the future, and I think we'll continue to have successful outcomes. So lastly, I would like to introduce the incoming incident commander, who will be taking command of the incident in a couple days on Tuesday, Incident Commander Mike Page.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Mike Page. I'm the incident commander for California Interagency Incident Management Team 8. First off, I just want to recognize the great work that's gone into this incident so far. Firefighters from all agencies, Forest Service, or federal, state, and our local county, local government departments. As you guys know, they had one heck of a firefight on their hands, and they utilized every tool that they could to help protect those critical values at risk, which include you all and your communities. We talked a lot about the values at risk that exist out there on the landscape that you guys all live in and love. And we're going to continue to do everything and champion the cause that Team 5 started. And we're going to come in here and we're going to give you everything we can to serve you all and your communities and continue to make sure that this fire goes out. A couple things I wanted to just kind of highlight and some of the efforts. All agencies here, like I mentioned, they use every tool at their disposal. Night flying aircraft, heavy equipment, dozers, hotshot crews, hand crews, every type of engine that you could think of. This fire rose to the top priority, and that's what you got. You got everything, not just from the state of California, but from the entire nation out here. And we're going to continue to provide that same level of support from Team 5 now to Team 8. And again, we're here to serve you guys. Hope to see you guys out there. Thank you guys for having us. Have a good night.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. So that concludes the formal presentation. We'll now go into questions and answers that you submitted again through email and through the chat. First up, we're going to bring our Unified Operations Section Chief, Tony Acchipenti.
Thank you, Nathan. So we have received a number of questions, and I appreciate that. Happy to answer them. The first question, do you believe the northwest portion of the fire is contained? And I think it's important to talk a little bit about what we actually look at as what containment means. And there's a couple of different definitions. But when you look at this northwest portion of the fire, what you'll see, and coming up actually from the southwest portion, you see along the fire's perimeter, there's a black line working its way up to the north. We define that as contained. That does not mean that the fire is controlled. It does not mean that the fire is out. What it means is that we have we feel that there's a very high likelihood that the probability of that fire moving in that area is extremely low. Now, I will tell you, as you work your way up to the north, we still have red line, and we have a couple small sections on the very northwest tip that are reflected in black, and those are contained. But again, we have not seen any movement on this portion of the fire in the last few days. I will tell you that we have near 1,000 firefighters working in and around this area right here. We have helicopters up over the fire. We have fire engines. We have hand crews. We have bulldozers. We have water tenders. And all that to say, there is a very robust presence of resources out there. And again, highlighting the fact that we haven't seen any movement on that portion of the fire the last few days, we're feeling very confident in those control lines. And I would anticipate as things continue, you will see that black line on the map continue to progress towards that northwest portion. Question, what is the plan for protection of residences along Upper Lopez Canyon Road, specifically the ones to the north of the Lopez Conference Center? And I believe that is out here just to the west of the fire proper footprint. And what I would tell you is similar to the last answer. We have a robust pool of resources out there. They're aggressively working to secure that edge. They at times are on their hands and knees, hand feeling the edge to make sure that it's cold, that it's out, that none of the heavy fuels in the area are still retaining heat. And they do that through a variety of ways, working 50, 100, 200, 300 feet off the edge, adding water, stirring that up, making sure that there's nothing that's going to threaten the line. How long should we expect to see crews in the area keeping an eye on things following the 100% containment? And that's a good question. And I talked about this earlier with the fire suppression efforts. I would anticipate resources out here for some time, certainly the next several weeks. And then as we transition this fire back to the local forest, the Los Padres National Forest, and the CAL FIRE San Luis unit, they are going to continue that effort. As was touched on earlier, the fire is not over yet, right? And we know that there's hazards associated with fires, certainly in Southern California, for months to come. As we transition into our rainy season, we have to be concerned on hydrological threats. We have to ensure that the proper mitigations are in place, working with hydrologists, working with what are referred to as bear and wart teams. And we're going to do everything that we can to mitigate future hazards in that area. Again, once you start to see this black line reflected moving north, that's a representation of how confident we are feeling, and you'll start to see resources from a suppression standpoint start to dwindle. And the last question, I'm sorry, I got two more. How is it looking north of Pozo Road and Park Hill Road? And again, we haven't seen any movement to the north. I believe our original control objective was to keep the fire south of Pozo Road, which we were successful, and currently our control objective is to keep the fire in its current footprint, and that is still holding strong. And lastly, what would happen if fire got into the Santa Lucia wilderness? That's a great question. What I'll tell you is we did have two pretty dramatic differences on the fire. In the south, the fire worked its way into the Brea fire scar, and that burned, I believe, in 2009. And it presented a little bit differently than it did once it got up here into the Garcia wilderness. And when you look at the way fire burns and the causal factors to fire behavior, there's really three key factors. There's slope or topography, there's weather, and then there's the fuel. And I will tell you, the Brea fire scar burned in 2009. It's a much younger fuel bed than the Santa Lucia is. And so you have very, very tall, very decadent brush. It's very thick. There's a high dead component in there. And so under the right conditions, when it's hot and when it's dry and when it's windy and it's on a steep slope, you could anticipate rapid fire growth, much like we saw on the north end of the fire here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that. We've got some questions for our incident commander, so I'm going to bring them right on back. Talk to Mike.
All right, I got two questions. So the first one, somebody must be well educated on fire terms. The question is there a control percentage? And although we don't depict that in our outward briefings, I could explain a little bit what control versus containment means. So as you saw from Ops Chief Ochapiti, black line versus red line, that is a containment line. So what containment means is there's a reasonable thought that it's going to hold under prescribed conditions. So nothing that's going to catch our, like the weather or the meteorologist coming out of nowhere and an unpredicted event happening. So we're basically saying that to our best of our knowledge and our abilities that this line is contained unless something unreasonable happens. Control is another thing where it's the next step, getting us closer to the word out. So control is a percentage. We don't often use it in a setting with how we display it. So control is we are firm that it will not get out of the control line and that it will not move anywhere. So right now, I'm not going to release anything because we haven't come up with a number of control, but we are at 91% contained, so that we feel that 91% around the fire is contained at this moment. So the next thing is what is next for Team 5. So what's next is there's a couple different factors. We have a couple days of transition with Team 8 as described by Chief Page earlier. And then we have closeout with the forest and local CAL FIRE unit. And then we finally get to go home for some days off. Like I said, we were, when the fire started on the 1st, we did an activation call. So we've been pretty busy since the 1st of August and we mobilized. So we've been out here for 18 days. So we are a federal team, so we're in the federal rotation. The activity it could happen all times of the year, like I said, 365 days. So we get 3 days of R&R rest, and then we get 4 days at our day jobs back at home unit. So we're off a rotation for 7 days. Interesting facts, our team mobilizes in a lot of different locations. Like Chief Bohall said earlier, we went down to the Rose Bowl early in January of this year. We've also been to faraway places like Canada in 2024 and all over the Northern California area as well. So we go all over. So what's next is getting our rest, seeing our families, getting home safely as possible, and getting everybody ready for the next one, or wherever the next tragedy is. Next, I'll introduce Kevin Bohall.
All right, so the first of my questions are you doing anything to mitigate valley fever for the firefighters? So this one came up on one of the previous community meetings, but it is something that's been identified in this area. So we did a safety briefing on it and had stuff in the incident action plan specific to looking out for valley fever. We also do an incident safety analysis in ICS 215A. We have one here on the wall that we utilize when we do our work assignments, and valley fever is one of the things that was identified. So if there is an area that we actually find valley fever, obviously it's usually dust or areas that people are mitigating something that causes dust. One thing you can do is you can wet the area down so you don't have the dust, so that's a mitigation. If somebody does get exposed, we have exposure reporting we can do specific to that to make sure that we keep folks out of that area once it's been identified. This is a good one. If the dry grass is 3 to 5 feet high, how far should you clear away from buildings and trees? So obviously, we'll go back to Public Resources Code 4291, which is the LE 100 program. So 100-foot of defensible space is state law around a structure and state direct protection area. So one of the ideas there is obviously a recommendation is the first thing is the zero zone. So that's 0 to 5 feet, and that's a reduced fuel zone that doesn't have anything that's going to be flammable regarding vegetation. And from there to 30 feet is an area that we would say to recommend to get rid of all grass that's dry, dead grass. So we do that, and then outside of that, 30 to 100 feet is the reduced fuel zone. So there, you want to get the grass as low as you can, have spacing on your trees, and have areas between bushes and stuff like that that you are watering and caring for, so that there isn't continuity of those fuels. And when I say continuity, those are areas where where fire could carry from bush to bush, tree to tree, things like that. But I would always recommend going outside of that 100 feet if you can do so, to your property line, or outside of that if your property line goes further. We also talked about prescribed grazing previously, other things like that, so you can do fuels reduction. That's just going to aid in firefighting efforts if there is an incident that's going to impact your home. Last one, what action or agencies would you recommend for pursuing neighborhood burns? So specifically, they're talking about prescribed burning when the conditions are available. So different things that you can do in either San Luis Obispo or Santa Barbara County. Obviously, you can get a burn permit through CAL FIRE or through Santa Barbara County Fire. Specific, it's an LE5 or an LE7 when those conditions are available and it's safe to do so. With an LE7 and the way it's set up now in California, if you have a burn plan and you have a project you want to do, landowners do have the right to burn on their own property. Once you obtain that permit, obviously the other key is you have to work with the Air Pollution Control District in order to actually have a day that you can put the required amount of smoke, depending on the size of your burn, into the air shed. So understanding that you work with those two items, you should be able to burn on your own property. Another thing that comes up, and I know Santa Barbara County has this, they do have prescribed burn associations. So that's something that you can utilize, obviously, to work together to get state fire marshal burn bosses possibly to come help you burn your property. And then last, obviously, work with CAL FIRE, work with the local CAL FIRE battalion chiefs. There are opportunities to have them come out and look at your property and look at a project, which they're going to have to do anyway when you get the permit, and give recommendations on what you could do to put broadcast fire on the landscape on your property at the right time under the right conditions.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. So next we've got some public safety questions. So we're going to bring back up Commander Dowdy.
Good evening. I just have one question, so it'll be pretty quick. The question is, can we have a different alarm alert sound for evacuation cancellations? The short answer is no. We are stuck to that sound.
We will make every effort during a cancellation of an evacuation order or warning to have it during the day to minimize disruption. But we are limited to only being that sound. So that was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander. And we've got some more questions for the force, so we'll go ahead and bring you back up. Deputy Jeannie.
Okay, got a few questions here. They're good ones. So let's start with this one. Was High Mountain Campground saved? And so let you know, the High Mountain Campground is within the fire footprint, and assessment is currently ongoing to determine what kind of damage was done to that infrastructure, that feature, as well as others in the area. So we are cataloging that as we're working through as conditions allow, and we can get firefighters back in there to assess those needs, and then we'll be looking at plans on how to fix any damage that we've got. Here's another one. And I touched on this a little bit, but I'll go a little bit deeper into some of the questions here. So it's regarding the forest fire closure area and how long do we anticipate the Santa Lucia district to be closed. And so as I had stated before, we're currently assessing and looking at the condition of the fire and the confidence that the team has in holding the features. And we are looking at those areas that are further afield from where the fire footprint is, and looking at trying to get those open sooner than later. But also realize too that when this fire was really going, and we wanted to have backup plans in case our preliminary plan or primary plan wasn't successful, we put in contingency lines. And that requires some suppression repair to be able to get those areas to be safe and secure for the resources, for the public out there. And so as we're going through those assessments, we're determining what's needed, and because we don't have unlimited resources, we're prioritizing where we're putting that equipment. And then as we work through that and complete that work, we'll be releasing superseding orders and getting that communication out with the new team. The specific question is, why is it closed now that the fire is out? And that's one of those misleading things. I know we're seeing a lot of smoke in the air over the last few weeks with the fire. It was concerning to everybody, but this fire is definitely not out. As IC Mueller stated, we're at 91% contained, but there's still potential. We have windy conditions that frequently come in that test our lines in the evening. We would have hotter and drier conditions that could make fuels more available. So, there's still a lot of potential out there, and it's definitely not out. What are the fines for users violating the closure? So there is the closure order that's posted in several places, including on the Los Padres Forest webpage, on the INSA webpage for the Gifford fire, and also what's the other? INSA web, and then through the fire PIO information and on the sandwich boards that are put out around the communities. So here's what it says. The fines could be up to $5,000 per individual or up to $10,000 per organization, and imprisonment of up to 6 months in prison or both. So that's, those are the fines and the consequences for people violating the closure. But I also, and this other question that comes to it is, what are the risks with OHV users and campers ignoring the closure? So there is this, financial or penalty that is possible. But also, please consider that we have a lot of people that have been out on the lines for a long time. They're very focused on trying to get their job done safely and effectively. And by entering that fire closure area before it's been deemed safe for you to do so, you are potentially compromising not only your safety, but theirs too. The last thing I want to do is to have to go and make notifications to some families, because the employees might have been impacted by incidents that happen out there where we experience serious injury or death or some other unwanted effect. So ask you to please be mindful that people are here, they're dedicated to doing their jobs, and they like to have a safe working environment to do that in. Will there be more controlled burns to areas that have never been burnt or haven't been burnt in a while? So this is an interesting question, and I appreciate it. The Los Padres National Forest is a full suppression fire, so when we have full suppression forest, so when we have wildfires, we are in a full suppression strategy, as we've been doing the last few weeks. But we are also working on trying to be proactive and looking at places where we can strategically place fuel breaks, do thinning, and generally make the areas in the forest more resistant or more resilient to wildfire coming through, so that we can keep the ecological condition intact, those communities intact up there, and then also be able to provide safe places for our firefighters to engage when fires happen on the landscape, because it's going to happen again. And so we do have some projects that we're working on, the Los Padres, the Wildfire Risk Reduction Project that's currently going through the final public review stages that will help us to address some of those needs. And there's more information on the Los Padres Forest page for you to check that out. Finally, what are the prevention fail-safes to keep this from happening again? So I would look at this as, what can each person do? What is their personal responsibility that they can take when they're out in the field, when they're at their house, when they're camping, when they're driving along roads? How can they minimize any impact of potentially starting a fire due to their actions? I don't think anyone usually does these willingly, but we need to be mindful about why, what is the potential if someone takes a cigarette and they throw it out the window, what's the potential that could start a fire? What's the potential for driving through dry grass to start a fire? Think about your actions. Take personal responsibility to educate yourself on how fires are commonly started by human factors, and help us reduce the risk out there. Another big thing right now is we are also in a full campfire ban right now on the Los Padres National Forest due to being in fire restrictions. So not having unpermitted or disallowed campfires during high fire severity time is another really easy way to help us prevent fires from unintentionally starting and getting out of control. So those are all the questions that I've received. I want to thank everyone for your time and attention today. I know that we have been here a while in the communities. We're going to continue to be here to do the great work together. And I want to thank our partners that were in Unified Command, CAL FIRE, San Luis Obispo County Sheriffs, Santa Barbara County Sheriffs, and thank the outgoing Incident Team 5 and Incident Management Team 5, and welcome the Incident Management Team 8 to help us continue all the great work that's been put in place and to help communities and the Los Padres National Forest get back to a little bit normal routine. So with that, thank you and good night.
Thank you, Deputy Forest Supervisor Dawson. And while that concludes the formal presentation and the questions and answers, and this will be our last public meeting for the Unified Command Team, please keep an eye out for Team 8. They will continue on with public meetings. Take a look at the Los Padres National Forest webpage, social media accounts for those upcoming meetings. From the Unified Incident Command Team, it's been an honor to serve your public lands and your communities. Have a great evening.